how your financial advisor can add value. Today's episode, we share 4 specific and valuable ways financial advisors contribute to their clients' lives.
Welcome to another episode of Millstone River Live, a podcast brought to you by Millstone River Wealth Management.
Financial advisors add value to their clients' lives in many ways. Of course, I'm biased. I am a financial advisor, but the focus is often on investment performance, returns on the portfolio. That's important, but there are other ways that the value of an advisor shows up at different times as we work together over time and working on financial goals. Adam, let's kick it off. Give me the first way a good financial advisor can add value to their clients' lives.
Sure. These are broad categories, but I think they are all impactful ways we can, aid in our clients reaching their goals. And the major or first topic would be when we initially engage with the client, it's generally to help them develop a financial plan. With anything in life, it helps to together with a professional go through a process to find out what's most important to you, where do you want to go, and then have a pathway in order to achieve that. We call that goal-based planning, and we think it's a really helpful way to organize your thoughts. It will, include things like a savings strategy, managing debt, also just having a good sense of what your personal balance sheet looks like, both assets but also liabilities. So once you have all of that important information at your fingertips, it becomes a lot more impactful when you make, whether it's investment decisions, savings strategies going forward. Once we've assisted with developing a plan, though, it doesn't end there. It's important to see and ensure that you're on track for your goals going forward. When life changes, whether that's family expanding or a family separating, a new job, all of those things will impact your financial plan. And we think it's always helpful to have a financial advisor as a sounding board for those audibles in life. So that's what I would say is the first broad way we can assist with clients. Once you have that plan, Matt, then what's sort of the next step?
Yeah, so the next step might be sort of overseeing the investments. This one might sound sort of obvious, but it is important, and I think there's a lot that goes into it. So performing good research, due diligence on the investment selection is very important. The investment holdings, the companies that are involved behind those, that back those securities, you want to make sure that you can stay out of the ditches as much as possible. Asset allocation is an overlooked but very important aspect of putting together an investment portfolio. There's a lot of academic style research that suggests asset allocation represents the vast majority of success or failure of any portfolio. In other words, if done well, that portfolio is so much more likely to succeed, and if ignored or done poorly, so much more likely to fail. And these asset allocation approaches are not necessarily a perfect science, but they do have to be considered as part of that overall portfolio construction. And then one of the most simple ways to sort of potentially add a little bit of return without adding on any additional risk is to periodically rebalance the holdings. If you have a good asset allocation, over time it's going to sort of, need to be tweaked. And those adjustments once in a while can help you to secure the benefits of that asset allocation model that you've built and make sure that you don't kind of run amok with the holdings that do really well for a while and then you become out of whack.
So not just set it and forget it one time.
Absolutely not. If you do a really good job managing those portfolios, you might end up with a number you don't like on your 1099. What do we do there?
That brings us to one of the major ways we try to impact and provide value, which is reducing taxes. We've never met a client that shared with us that they, love the number their accountants give us as, in terms of what their liability is, and they're always looking for ways in which we can minimize that. And there's different categories of how we approach that. One is what I'd call tax-aware investing, and that that sort of falls into the category of when you're trying to reach a certain goal, and one in which maybe is short-term. Oftentimes, you're going to be investing in what we would call non-qualified or non-retirement accounts, meaning that the income, the capital gains that you generate throughout the year, that's going to be added to that 1099 that Matt just referenced. So in those types of accounts, sometimes employing strategies like holding positions for the longer term to avoid having to unnecessarily generate capital gains is important. Knowing the types of investment securities you're utilizing. Some are more tax-friendly than others. For someone that is in a high tax bracket, sometimes using things like municipals that have tax advantages are all ways in which you can minimize your tax drag as you're building wealth. When you are thinking about investing for longer term, whether it be retirement, as an example, sometimes using tax advantage vehicles, investment accounts are of value. So that can be traditional IRAs and different type of qualified retirement plans in which you get the benefit of tax deferral. It could be utilizing after-tax contributions to things like Roth vehicles, in which not only do the funds grow tax deferred, but when you go to use them after 59 and a half, the gains can be even accessed tax-free, or even insurance products that have tax deferral are all different ways in which you can match up the goals and the liabilities with the tax preferred features that you'd like. And then lastly, sometimes even in taxable accounts, there's things that we can do like tax loss harvesting, which is taking a position that is perhaps down and using that and selling it and using it as a tax credit against a realized capital gain for the year. After something called a wash rule, we have the ability, if we like that investment, of buying that 31 days later and getting the economic interest of it again. But now we have this valuable tax credit that will make that 1099 look a little bit more favorably. So reducing taxes are a major way we find value. But then also, once you've accumulated all these assets, how do you create the cash flow that you want? And maybe, Matt, you could share about ways in which generating income strategies can be valuable.
Sure. So for many of our clients, the idea of generating income either now or in the future is paramount. It's the most important thing that we can do with that investment portfolio. Sometimes people think about, I want to leave money to my family when I've died, or I want to pay for certain things along the way, maybe a child's education or a second home. But ultimately, generating income during retirement years dominates the conversation for so many clients. And this is an important topic to them, therefore it's an important topic for us. Asset allocation is important. Not only what holdings you own, but where are they held? This is not an arbitrary decision, or at least it shouldn't be. Making sure that those securities are in place to perform a job. Sometimes I talk about this with a client and I say, if you and I were going to go out in your backyard and build a deck, and I brought a toolbox filled with nothing but hammers, we wouldn't get too far. You need to have different tools because each one performs a different function and will do it well, sort of the right tool for the job type of an approach. But having a strategy for how you take withdrawals during those retirement years is just as important as the strategy you might have had when you put the portfolio together or when you monitored and made changes to it along the way. For example, many people attribute the line of, having a plan is great until you get punched in the face, right? Famously said by heavyweight champ Mike Tyson. There's some wisdom there. Even though he took it to the head a whole bunch of times, that's a pretty smart thing to think about. So having a plan for not only when things are going well, but what to do when things are not going well. We know market downturns will continue to happen. We don't know when, and we don't know necessarily the severity or the duration, but we know that it is inevitable that we will experience more market downturns in the future. History tells us that it's happening. It's going to continue to happen. But what do we do during that market downturn, and how do we best prepare that portfolio and the client who owns the portfolio to allow for recovery to do as well as possible on the way back up as they did perhaps on the way down? The other thing that we know is, and this is a fact, people are living longer. Most textbooks on the topic of financial planning, and specifically retirement planning, say that the greatest enemy of any financial plan is longevity, meaning the longer we live, the more expensive it is to plan for that long life, and the more money you need, or the smarter the portfolio construction in order to generate that type of income that might be necessary for the duration of those years. It's a fact that the cost of living, even if we maintain a similar lifestyle, will increase over time. It's not because the inflation rate is excessive necessarily. It's just something that happens. Maybe it's varying degrees, but it never goes down, right? We've never seen a period of time where the cost of living was meaningfully reduced as a result of some greater economic function. We know that generating income is perhaps the most important thing to a big number of clients. And so how you put together that asset allocation, the asset location, the withdrawal strategies during retirement, and the planning for these downturns when things don't necessarily go your way or don't go according to plan. So we know that those four things, developing the plan, overseeing the investments, reducing taxes wherever it's possible, and being prepared to properly and adequately generate income, probably even a rising income for a longer life expectancy. These are going to be the four key ways any financial advisor can add great value to a client's life, to their portfolio, and perhaps even to multiple generations of their family. We know, too, from a Russell Investment study that was published in 2019 called Value of an Advisor, that when you add up these types of things, these four specific ways that financial advisors can impact the portfolio and the outcome for those clients, it could be worth about 2% over time. 2% is higher than most financial advisors charge their clients. And so we know that if you can actually derive this value, then the fees paid for those services were paid for, if that makes sense to say it that way. And that's the intention, is that you get great value, not just from the services provided, but also that the fees paid were less than the value received. We appreciate that you took the time to listen to this episode of Millstone River Live. We encourage you to share it with someone you think might benefit, and look forward to checking in with you on the next episode.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Millstone River Live. Feel free to share it with someone you think might benefit. Millstone River Wealth Management is an independent wealth management firm based in New Jersey. We form a supportive partnership with our clients and help with financial education and planning. We welcome your feedback. Send comments or questions to podcast@millstone-river.com. More information about our firm can be found online at millstone-river.com. Thanks for listening.